And my little screen doesn't want to work. Oh, sorry about that. And what am I doing this to do? All right. Okay. All right, this is Dr. Yam, your Keep It Simple coach, and I am pleasured to be here with you all tonight for another Biz Tip Tuesday inside of the Content Creations and Tips group. Hope everyone is doing well. Sorry for the delay. Somehow it's on my computer. And so anyway, how's everyone doing? We're going to get right into it. So tonight we're going to ask ourselves a quick question. Well, maybe not so quick, but the answer to the question that we want to get to is, how does your buyer's journey connect with your content creation? And whether or not you know it or not, there is a connection. And I want to be able to provide you with some insights for you to really start thinking about when you're doing your content creating, that you're always keeping your buyer in mind. And what can that look like? So, what I thought I'd do tonight is kind of just provide you with some chunks, some nuggets of what are the components when we think about the buyer's journey and answering some simple questions. So, let me pull up my notes. And so we're going to look at what is a buyer's journey? What are what I call your fundamental sales principles that we all should live by as entrepreneurs? Another component is which content to use when throughout this journey. What's your position in this journey alongside your customer? What is your customer really thinking about during this journey? What are some social posts that you may want to consider? And then where's the overlap? And there's quite a bit that you'll notice in a few moments. So let's get started with that. So I'm going to pull up a couple of screens. I'm going to make us, there we go. So let's check out, oh my, bring up, oh, let's see, take this off. So let's take our first look at what is a buyer's journey. And I made you some visuals so that way you guys could have a better sense for what the heck am I talking about and have a visual. All right, so your first thing is, what is a buyer's journey? So alongside, and as much as you are here to provide a solution to a problem as a entrepreneurs, whether you're a freelancer, you're a blogger, you're a coach, you're a solopreneur of sort, we are all trying to navigate and set up an experience for your buyers. And what can that look like for them? You have control of what it is you want to put in front of them. And so what your buyers are going to be experiencing is not so much transactional as it is about a journey. I want you to think of it like dating. When you're dating, there's not much you do on your first date. You're exploring, you're getting to know each other, right? And so you're becoming what I call like the awareness level. And so when we think about a buyer's journey, we're just trying to get in front of them and start making our first impressions. And what can that look like in doing that? And so it's your opportunity for that buyer to get to know you and making them aware of what are the things that you offer, what insights you can provide, and also have an opportunity in that buyer's journey to start to build the relationship, because this is what essentially it's all about. Your buyer's journey is about a relationship. And so how can you facilitate this relationship in a way in which you're going to be able to have a successful end, right? So again, if I take it back to the analogy of dating, in some instances, it may be that you become friends, but you don't necessarily get married. And so I'll use that kind of an analogy along the way. So again, what is a buyer's journey? So simply put, your buyer's journey is just a combination of steps that your prospect or the lead that you get goes through before they become a paying customer. And so your buyer is coming through three phases. With the last one obviously being that of a purchase. But your first phase is awareness. Your second phase is consideration, and then your last phase is going to be where they will make a decision. And so what you want to be able to decide on is how can I take them as far down that journey road as possible. And we want to be able to do that using some strategies. And one of is that they're in the stages. So there's several different variations you'll hear about buyer's journeys. I like to keep things as simplistic as possible, so I narrowed it down to the primary three. It can get as extensive as 5 or 6, but we're going to keep it to the 3. So awareness, consideration, and decision. And when you think about it, we're also going to take into consideration not only the journey, but how as entrepreneurs in creating content, how does your content affect the buyer's journey, and how can you optimize your content creation so that the buyer's journey can be as impactful as possible. So there's reasons why you want to be able to create content for the buyer's journey stages, in which I'll share with you in a bit, so that you can help to make the journey as clear as possible, and so that they're not going to zigzag and come off the road and have an accident, or worse, make a U-turn. We don't want that. So we want to be able to do that. So the other part is, so awareness stage is where your prospect is basically becoming aware of the fact that they have a problem or a need, and that they know little about the possible ways that they're able to resolve that need. And so this is kind of like that information gathering state that, they're just not ready to make a decision yet, but they know they're kind of making themselves aware that, like, I think I have a problem, right? That's where the awareness stage is. When you then come over to consideration phase, at this part in your journey, your prospect or your customer has reached the consideration stage where they have a more complete understanding of their problem, but they haven't yet decided on identifying the solution. So your consideration stage is about giving them options. And so it's not that stage where they're going to make a decision on which option is best for them, but what they are going to be able to do is that they're going to be able to put up all the different options on the table so that they might be able to make a possible best decision. And so at the buyer's journey stage, the prospect isn't ready to buy at this point. They still need some help making a decision and how to best resolve their issue. When you think about the decision stage, well, as you have already kind of figured out, the person or the prospect has already entered into this stage because they are ready to buy. They have determined their options in the consideration phase, and they are looking for information on why they should choose your brand. What makes you stand out from everyone else? And so this is where you finally get to tout about all the great things that your product or your service is going to be able to do for them. You bringing it on, right? Unfortunately, some of the mistakes that we often make, and I'm just as guilty, is that we spend a lot of our time putting decision-making stages in the decision-making posts and web pages and ads in front of people who aren't ready to see them yet. And so it's important that you understand that every time a person comes inside of your space by way of social media or your blogs or whatever, they are coming in typically not knowing anything about you. And so I want you to just have these three phases as your top of mind as to what is it that you're really trying to offer your customers. And that's where the buyer's journey is. So simply three phases. Now, after having the three phases, I would like to walk you through the next element. And this is also, again, we're in it to make money, people. It's how you go about it that makes the difference. And so there's a fundamental aspect when it comes to selling and marketing in and of itself. And it's what I call the sales principles. And this should not be new information for any of you. So it's really an opportunity for me to reinforce what you should already know. But in case you're new to the game, no problem. But there are three fundamental sales principles. It's the know, like, and trust factors. People will not buy from you unless they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And isn't it ironic that the same principles with respect to selling is also in alignment to the buyer's journey? Awareness, because if I'm not aware of you, I don't know you. And then if I want to like you, I got to have some consideration of why I would like you. And then in the trust, I'm trusting enough to make a decision that I feel as though you may be the viable option to solve my problem. And so there lies where these all start to interconnect. Now, after you understand the buyer's journey and you now understand and bring that fundamental principle around selling and understanding the buyer's elements of the aspects of why a person will want to buy from you, then the next thing comes into play as about, well, which content would make the most sense for me to put in front of my customers during these different stages? Sorry. And in this particular case, change my glasses. We now want to look at some content. So what I put together for you, there's always going to be overlap, right? So we want to make sure we have that. So here is which content makes the most sense to put in front of your customers over what stages. So we know we have the awareness, the consideration, and decision phases. What content you want to start thinking about will also play a part in it. Now, and what I mean by that is when you're creating content, you're always thinking about your audience, whoever your reader is, whoever's coming across your social posts and engaging in any way. And sometimes, depending on the level of necessity of your buyer, they may come in at the consideration phase, and that's fine. You're always going to be creating content for all three phases because you never know how quickly you're going to be able to convert a customer. So when we think about the awareness phase, these are simply suggestions. Remember, everything I offer is simply a way, not the way. So when we think about the awareness stage, opportunities where you can get in front of customers who don't know what they want necessarily and that they don't know you. So you need to start to grab their attention. And ways in which you can grab their attention because they'll be looking for you in a variety of places. This applies no matter if you are brick and mortar, local, or online, whether you're product or you're service-based. So in the awareness stage, some of the things that you may want to be mindful of as far as types of content that you could be creating is, in this case, either print or digital advertising. So putting ads, it could be a billboard. It could be a fence, what do you call those seats placards, any type of advertising, digital advertising, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, ads themselves, commercial ads, right? That's an awareness stage. Think about every time you watch television and a new commercial comes up. You are now becoming aware of what that product is and what it can do. Now, you may not go out and buy it right away, but you just become aware that it exists. And then that's pretty much what they're trying to do at first. Another opportunity is going to be the blog writing. Writing blogs is another opportunity for you to be part of the awareness stage as a product for that. A lot of it is going to be in social media. And I'm going to break down the four types of social media posts that you may want to utilize. And then another great awareness content is infographics. The great thing about an infographic, as much as it is for social media, is infographics are able to provide a lot of key information in short chunks that people can process very quickly. And it's also an engaging because it's visual at the same time. But it's a great mechanism for you to be able to create content in that zone and for that stage of the buyer's journey. Another one obviously may be referrals from friends and family. We never want to leave out word of mouth. It's also a very viable part of being in business. When we think about the consideration stage, so now they have a sense of what the problem is, they know they need to get a solution, and now they're really thinking about, well, what can that really look like for me? So spaces or content that you can really attach yourself at that stage is going to be websites, webinars, and live demos, right? Because at this point, they're still looking for a solution. And so your ability to demonstrate to them your knowledge and your expertise and keep giving them some added value by way of a webinar and having some takeaway is also key. You'll note that I also still include blogs and social media. These are those overlaps. They don't stay inside of one stage. They will continue on all the time. And then newsletters is another, because once a person has come into your space and trusted you enough to give you their email address, you also have an opportunity to help them in that consideration phase. You're going to be communicating, you're building a relationship inside of that newsletter. So there's an opportunity for you to engage with them at that stage using that type of content. And then there's this decision phase. And in the decision phase, they're really in a space now where they've really decided, you know what, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to get it, and I need to know who's the best person to do this for. So now this is where your expertise comes into play. This is where you'll be able to shine and demonstrate you're the expert. And so here is where you'll be able to maybe offer tutorials, do a comparison. Maybe if you have a product, you may want to say, what makes your product so much better than another? Creating a guide, creating some tips sheets, a checklist, something that they can apply and decide, is what this person providing me useful, applicable, and giving me some quick result, right? That's that opportunity. An ebook allows the same thing. It's to provide value, added value information that people will find useful, and also will be able to be so enamored. And this is where it becomes very time consuming in some cases. We are very gratification driven, and we want lots of goodies all the time, and we want lots of freebies, but everything can't be for free. But what you do put in front of your intended customer, you're competing. So you've got to be able to think about what's separating me and how can I give them such a wow factor that they will want to say, well, wow, if this ebook is this informative and this useful, I can't imagine what the stuff I got to pay for it looks like. That's where the person's mindset is. And therefore, another thing to broker that decision-making stage for you is going to be testimonials from your customers. And there you'll be able to, again, proof of concept, social proof, and again, newsletters as well. an ongoing relationship and providing them that information and invitations to learn and hear more. So these are just some ideas when it comes to the content that you may want to consider in your production. And we're going to be going through the different, all of these different aspects and how you can create the content. But I just want to, at a high level, to really give you some insights as far as what are the things that you should be thinking about when you're creating content and where they're going to be the most impactful. The next thing having to do with so there's content, then is you. Where are you in this decision-making process? And so here, again, with the overlap, I'm going to show you an overlap. So here's some overlap. At the awareness stage, they're figuring out they need to know who you are in that stage of buying. And then you want to move them over to the consideration stage where, again, they're starting to like you. And then they need to know, why do I care? What you have to offer is viable for me. That's the question that customer is thinking about. The next thing that customer is thinking about is, are you the expert? And so, these are the three things your customer is thinking about across those three stages of the buyer's journey. Who are you? Why do I care what you have to put your offer has to do with what I'm looking for? And then in that consideration, are you the expert? And this is where you get to prove to yourself. And that's the position that you want to be in. So notice how there starts to be a layering effect between the buyer's journey, the sales principles, and what your customers are thinking about. Now, having said that, then your position is your visibility is where you want to be at that awareness stage. You want to make yourself so visible that people was like, every time I turn around, I keep seeing this guy's ad. I keep seeing their blog. I keep coming back. I keep seeing their blog posts. I keep seeing them maybe referred to. I might see their ad. Visibility is where your position is at the awareness stage. When you get into the consideration and the like phase, then you really are thinking about, you want to be as authentic as possible. You got to be your real self. You don't want to be putting on airs. You don't want to be showboating and you don't have a dime and you say you're talking about 10x and people. No, I ain't hating on folks, but be careful about what you're putting in front of people is a reflection of who you are and what you have the capacity of doing. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Be authentic, be who you are, share your life, be as real as possible. And when we think about your position when it comes to credibility, remember, are you the expert? This is your opportunity to show your credibility by showing your level of expertise in the area that you are good at and making it known by way of creating that ebook, creating that webinar, creating a training video, your testimonials from your customers. They all matter and they all have a role. And so between you and your customer is where all of this can start to come together. So I'm going to go back. So again, you have your overlap between your buyer's journey, your sales principles, and what your customer is thinking. And at the end, we're always wanting to keep in mind, what are the different types of content during the course of those three stages that you can be creating and keeping in mind. And again, you don't have to write 3 different blogs for the 3 different stages, but you certainly want to understand and know that when a blog is an opportunity to start to build a relationship, to create that connection with the reader, and as much as it is about them wanting to be able to come back. So that's where the difference is going to lie. And the same holds true at the decision phase. So just know that you have a different opportunities of creating content, and these are just the ways in which those are all alignment to the buyer's journey. Now, at the end of the day, when we think about social media, as you'll note that you'll use that quite a bit as part of awareness and consideration, and in the decision phase as well. But social media really will be more on the digital advertising side because this is where you're putting your offers in front. So let's talk a minute about what would the different types of social media posts be and the reasons why you want them. One of the things you don't want to do is always talking about yourself. And what I mean by that is you can't, all your social posts shouldn't be about blah, 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 blah. Because if that's all you're going to do, remember that's a post on buying and they don't know you yet. So, where is the social post that talk about an awareness of who you are, what you have to offer, and being able to start to build the relationship? So there are four types of social posts that you should consider having a good mix between them. And they're the four E's: educate, entertain, engage, and empower. So let me break down for you which each of those are so that you can start to really think about as you create social posts how they each can play a role and having a good mix amongst them. So the first one is, let me make sure I see what my screen says. What do I have for you? First one, educate. Now they don't have to be in any order. These are just the types of social posts. It's not a continuum. These are just the four. I just happen to put it in this order, okay? So the first one of the four is educate. So here, sorry, let me put my screen. An educate type of social post is where you're going to focus on adding valuable information to your clients to kind of help them understand what you're offer, what you can offer, and why they need you, and the problem that you can solve for them. That's how you're able to educate them. So you may a formula that you may want to consider is like, if you ask, I'll answer. And it's a chance for you, for your customer to ask a question and that you can give them a simple answer in. Or you may even put the question and answer in it. And I have some examples of what that looks like as well. It's just another way. It's simple. It's not overbearing. You're just giving a little taste, but you're educating them a little bit about a fact. But the fact is that you know that and that you're educating them at the same time. The next one in the chart is, let me see, make sure I'm jumping between my screen, an entertaining type of post. So when we think about entertaining, people go to social media to get away from busy work or to be distracted sometimes. They're not always going to social media for, intentional education and getting engagement all the time. So they kind of just want to be there to just relax for a moment. And so creating some content that helps that your buyer to do just that. And so it could be a motivational quote. It could be that infographic, because again, infographics, while they're educating as well, they also have an opportunity to keep them engaged in a very visually stimulating way. It could be a video. Again, it's just a kind of taking the dry and the boring out of the equation, and then being able to just have that good mix over time. Even if you're in a professional, it doesn't mean that you want to put something totally off track of what you're doing. So for any of you accountants out there or lawyers or business partners alike, it's not to take away from the sincerity or the seriousness of the topic matter that you're a subject matter in, but it is an opportunity again for them to just know that everything isn't always serious and that you want to add a little bit of fun and let your guard down just a little bit. The next one is empower. When we think about empowerment, I'm sorry, engage. Okay, I have my screen up. When we think about engaging, of all the four E's, right? Engagement is the most important. Here's an opportunity where what you put out is is really being tested, is how you're connecting with your intended audience, your prospects. Did they stop in that scroll to see what you posted enough to say, oh, that was interesting, I like that, and give you feedback? And that feedback is that like button, or it could be, a casual comment that they may put on a blog post in the comments. And they was like, this is really informative. So when you're creating content that's going to require your audience to kind of give feedback, then that's very intentional. So you want to be able to prompt them in such a way that you're creating social posts that allows them to express themselves and giving you their feedback at the same time. And it's another opportunity for that engagement. And for many of us, it's considered what we call social proof. So the more times that you can give your followers, as well as the ones who haven't followed you yet, an opportunity to connect with you and your content, then it's another vindication of validating that what you're putting out there is working. And that does take some work. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you're not good at it, that's okay. That's what you can get a virtual assistant for. So there's that. The last one is empower. And in empowerment here, what we're talking about is you want them to feel empowered. You want them to be able to say, maybe it's a quick tip or a bit of information that they didn't know, and they would be like, "Oh, that's really informative. I didn't know that," and they would then want to turn around and share it with a friend because you've empowered them enough with some information and knowledge that they didn't have before, and they found it useful. And the second way that you're able to help them be empowered is that you may even highlight them and bring them into your community and showcase them. Maybe it's a picture, a video, or having them to even maybe even rather guest post for you or show up in a podcast and such. So you're empowering your customers and your prospects at the same time. So those are the four ways when we think of social media posts that you can consider as part of your content creation. So remember, content creation is going to take on lots of different forms. I haven't put them all here, but simply this is just a quick representation because you can't put everything on a slide. But this is just giving you an idea. And of course, as you can see, social media kind of crosses all three stages as well. So now that we have an understanding of the buyer's journey, what your sales principles of know, like, and trust are, that you understand what your customer is thinking about during their journey, and then what is your role in the position of showing up as being visible, showing and being authentic, and then having that credibility as another overlap. There's all of these things that kind of going along at the same time. And in order for you to be successful, because at the end of the day, this is what we want. This is what we're striving for. We're striving for the buy, for the purchase. And so all of this comes into play, but you got to do the work and understand what's in your buyer's head so that you can meet their needs. I hope you found that to be another useful bit of information. We're going to be breaking down all these components that I share with you tonight are going to be part of some of the upcoming sessions and inside of some of our 5-day challenges. So please look forward for that. But I did want to kind of bring you a big picture of things that you really need to be thinking about when it comes to the buyer's journey and your content creation and how the two have a role between each other. So if you haven't already done so, please visit over at the Content Creation Tips and More Facebook group. If you're not already a member, I certainly invite you to do so. Just visit smallbizsociety.com and answer 3 quick questions, and you are in Life Blend. If you have not launched your business just yet, do not despair. I've got a space for you. It's the Busy 9 to 5ers Hive. This is a space where employees, people who are working full-time jobs or part-time jobs, but they haven't launched their dream idea yet, but they know that they want to and they need some help to make the transition happen. This is the space for you. It's the Busy 9 to 5ers Hive, and you can go to busy9to5ershive.com, and there too is where I provide you support to make that transition possible. And if you haven't already done so, feel free that you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and also on my website where I host and put up my weekly blogs, and also you can subscribe to my newsletter, my memo, The Adventures of a Not So Average Entrepreneur. So this is Dr. Yam. I'm your Keep It Simple coach. And so let's get busy. Take care. Bye-bye.